General. ESPN doing ESPN things. And in this case, not picking Caitlin Clark as a top 2 greatest college basketball player of all time. The disrespect is real. And guys, it's going to get worse.
Their final rankings placed Breanna Stewart at number 1, followed by Candace Parker at 2, Diana Taurasi at 3, Maya Moore at 4, and Cheryl Miller securing the 5th spot. As for Caitlin Clark, she was completely left out, and the sole reason given was that she didn't win a championship. That was the entire justification, nothing about her record-breaking performances, her impact on the game, or her undeniable talent. Just the absence of a championship title.
But I have a really hard time. It's paining me to leave Caitlin off this list because of the records, because of what she's done outside of those 94 feet. She has really thrust women's basketball in the mainstream. She has collected her individual athletes.
The internet erupted, and basketball fans were furious. How could the player who scored more points than anyone in NCAA history, man or woman, not make the top 5? How could the athlete who single-handedly turned women's college basketball into must-watch TV be so easily dismissed? Even WNBA legend Sue Bird couldn't stay silent.
So here's the thing. Love Caitlin. Love how she's transcended the game. I'm not going to go away from that. But in the open, we said, what makes a top 5 player? Winning. The only strike against Caitlin Clark is that she has not won a national championship.
She completely dismantled ESPN's argument with a simple thought experiment. Imagine all these players in a draft. There's no way Caitlin Clark isn't among the top 5 picks. In fact, she's probably in the top 3. Sue Bird's take cut through the noise with absolute clarity. If we're truly talking about the best basketball players, Clark deserves a spot in that elite conversation. Then came Fox Sports. Yesterday, they released their own top 10 list of the greatest women's college basketball players of all time, and guess what? Not only did Caitlin Clark make the list, but she ranked 2nd. That's right, Fox Sports placed Clark above basketball legends like Diana Taurasi, Cheryl Miller, and Candace Parker.
But just to touch on the Caitlin Clark of it all, listen, I think the way that I'm looking at this, no, Caitlin didn't win. It's why she's not number 1. I think going to the national championship game 2 years in a row, basically playing big in every big game, hitting every big shot in every big moment, there's something to that, clearly. Raising the level of your teams, there's something this kid is obviously special, definitely one of the greatest of all time.
Some may argue that Clark's cultural impact shouldn't factor into all-time rankings, that basketball greatness should be judged purely on performance, not TV ratings or merchandise sales. That's a fair point. But even if we focus only on basketball accomplishments, Clark's case is undeniably strong. She scored an astonishing 3,951 points in her college career. The next closest active player? 2,674 points. That's a massive 1,277-point difference, essentially an entire season's worth of scoring at Clark's pace. To put it in perspective, the gap between Clark and 2nd place is about the same as the gap between 2nd place and 56th place all-time. She didn't just break the scoring record, she shattered it. And scoring isn't even her only elite skill. Clark also ranks 6th all-time in assists with 1,144. No other player in the top 15 for scoring even cracks the top 50 in assists. Her rare combination of elite scoring and elite playmaking is unprecedented in college basketball history. That's why Fox Sports ranking her 2nd makes sense. Breanna Stewart may have the championship pedigree, but Clark's statistical dominance is historic in a completely different way. To some extent, comparing the two is like comparing apples and oranges.
General. ESPN doing ESPN things. And in this case, not picking Caitlin Clark as a top 2 greatest college basketball player of all time. The disrespect is real. And guys, it's going to get worse.
A dominant center versus a revolutionary guard, 2 very different players, but both undeniably belong among the all-time greats. That's what makes ESPN's decision to exclude Caitlin Clark so puzzling. Throughout her career, ESPN dedicated countless hours to Clark's highlights, analysis, and features. They moved her games to primetime slots to maximize viewership, fully acknowledging her transformative impact on the sport. Yet, when it came time to rank the greatest players in history, they suddenly seemed to forget everything they had praised, focusing solely on championships as the deciding factor. Meanwhile, Fox Sports.
But I have a really hard time. It's paining me to leave Caitlin off this list because of the records, because of what she's done outside of those 94 feet. She has really thrust women's basketball in the mainstream. She has collected her individual athletes.
Fox Sports made several interesting choices beyond just Caitlin Clark's ranking. They placed Jameek Holdsclaw at number 5, a Tennessee legend who won 3 consecutive championships under Pat Summitt. Her exclusion from ESPN's top 5 is surprising, considering her dominant college career. Fox Sports also recognized Brittany Griner at number 7, honoring her revolutionary impact on the center position with her unmatched combination of height, shot-blocking ability, and offensive development. Both lists include Cheryl Miller, though they differ slightly. Fox Sports ranked her 4th, while ESPN placed her 5th. Miller's inclusion is especially important because she played in an era before widespread television coverage or social media, yet her dominance still stands the test of time. Another notable difference is Aja Wilson, who appeared 9th on Fox Sports' list but didn't crack ESPN's top 5. All-time rankings are inherently subjective. There's no perfect formula that balances statistics, championships, individual awards, and cultural impact into a single, definitive ranking. Different analysts weigh these factors differently. ESPN seems to prioritize championships, while Fox Sports places greater emphasis on individual brilliance and statistical dominance. Neither approach is necessarily right or wrong. Basketball is both a team and individual sport, and greatness can be measured in different ways, through points and assists, by cutting down championship nets, or by changing the way people perceive the game. What makes ESPN's exclusion of Clark particularly glaring is how it contradicts the way they've covered her career. They dedicated extensive airtime to her highlights, analysis, and features. They moved her games to primetime slots, recognizing her as a transformative figure in the sport. Yet, when ranking history's greatest players, they suddenly reduced her legacy to a simple yes or no question: did she win a championship? Fox Sports, on the other hand, took a broader approach, recognizing Clark's statistical dominance and the way she revolutionized women's college basketball. Their ranking at number 2 feels much more in line with the reality that fans have witnessed over the past 4 years. This debate also reflects a larger issue in how women's sports are covered. Female athletes often face impossible standards and shifting goalposts. When Clark was breaking scoring records, critics asked, but can she win the big one? When she reached consecutive national championship games, they said, but did she actually win? There's always another reason why a female athlete's accomplishments aren't quite enough. Fox Sports' ranking pushes back against this, recognizing that Clark's achievements stand on their own. It also acknowledges that championships don't happen in a vacuum. Context matters. Transforming the popularity of a sport is, in itself, a form of greatness. Of course, this conversation will only intensify as Clark begins her WNBA career with the Indiana Fever. If she dominates at the professional level and wins championships, will ESPN reconsider her place in college basketball history? Or will they find new reasons to diminish her impact? The beauty of sports debates is that they're never truly settled. Every new generation brings players who redefine greatness. Clark's legacy goes beyond points, assists, and titles. This debate isn't just about basketball, it's about how we define impact, how we measure greatness, and how we value women's sports. Clark didn't just break records, she broke barriers. She brought new fans to women's basketball, inspired young athletes, and forced the sports world to pay attention. Fox Sports' ranking recognizes that. ESPN's does not. So, who's right? Is Clark truly the second greatest women's college basketball player of all time, as Fox Sports suggests? Or does she belong outside the top 5, as ESPN claims? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Her statistical dominance is undeniable, her cultural influence is unmatched, and her individual brilliance is evident to anyone who watched her play. The championship void does matter, but perhaps not as much as ESPN weighed it. A reasonable ranking would place Clark somewhere in the top 5, balancing her unprecedented achievements with the titles she didn't win. But Fox Sports placing her at number 2 doesn't feel like an overreaction, it feels like a necessary correction to ESPN's oversight. More than any specific ranking, what matters most is that this debate is happening. Women's basketball deserves this level of passionate discussion. It deserves fans arguing over all-time rankings and legacies. It deserves the same historical appreciation that men's basketball has had for decades. Clark has ensured that this conversation will continue. Love her or critique her, you cannot ignore her. Her greatness demands attention, and it forces us to ask important questions about what we value in sports. Fox Sports and ESPN have simply put this debate into sharper focus. Their vastly different takes on Clark's legacy challenge us to think about what truly defines greatness. Is it championships above all else? Is it statistical dominance? Is it cultural impact? There's no single right answer. But the fact that we're asking these questions about women's basketball with the same intensity as we do in men's sports, that might be Caitlin Clark's greatest achievement of all.